Welcome, friend. Deep in the Caribou Mountains of British Columbia lies a town that refused to die. Its wooden storefronts still stand, their paint faded by more than a century of snow and silence. At night, when the lamps are out and the mountain air drifts through the empty streets, the past begins to stir, softly, as if clearing its throat. This is Barkerville. Once the heartbeat of the gold rush, now a place caught between history and haunting. They say the town was built on fortune and fire, that laughter and tragedy lived side by side here, and that some of those stories never truly left. Visitors speak of music in empty theatres, footsteps along deserted boardwalks, and faces glimpsed in the windows of locked buildings. Each whisper, each chill in the air, is a reminder that not all ghosts wear sheets. Some just linger in memory. Tonight, we return to the age of gold and dust, to the people who built Barkerville and the echoes they left behind. If you enjoy calm storytelling, haunted history, and the quiet side of the supernatural, please consider subscribing and sharing this film. It helps this series grow, and it helps keep these forgotten stories alive. Now, let's begin. Before Barkerville became a name on a map, before its streets echoed with the strike of hammers and the chatter of miners, there was only wilderness. The Caribou Mountains held valleys of dark spruce and trembling aspen, and the Quesnel River ran cold and fast through the stone. To the Dakel and Secwepemc peoples, this was a landscape of power, quiet, self-contained, and never truly empty. Then, in 1861, a man named Billy Barker sank his shovel into the gravel at the bottom of a ravine. What he uncovered changed everything. In a single pan of earth, Barker found enough gold to turn a nameless creek into a frontier legend. Within months, the valley filled with tents, canvas stores, and saloons nailed together from rough pine. Men arrived by the hundreds, hauling dreams and debt on their backs, following rumours of fortune north from Victoria and east from San Francisco. They called it the Caribou Gold Rush, and Barkerville was its heart. The town grew fast, too fast. Rivers of men poured in, each one convinced that the next pan, the next dig, the next claim would bring salvation. The sound of saws and axes echoed off the slopes. A row of saloons lit the muddy main street with the flicker of whale oil lamps. The hills filled with the smell of wet canvas and pipe smoke. By 1863, Barkerville had over 10,000 residents. It was a place where fortunes could be made and lost between sunrise and sunset, and where, as often as not, the mountain took back what it gave. Fire, sickness, and violence shadowed the town's growth. Typhoid fever spread through the miners' camps. Avalanches swept down on mule trails. One misstep in the tunnels, one candle left too close to a wall of canvas, and the dreams of dozens vanished into smoke. Yet the town endured, rebuilt itself again and again, driven by the same fever that had brought it into being. On September 16th, 1868, Barkerville burned. A single fire started behind a saloon on Main Street and spread faster than the fire bell could be rung. Within hours, the wooden city was gone, consumed in orange light and black ash. The smoke rose so high that travellers claimed to see it from 50 miles away. When the embers cooled, it seemed the rush was over. But Barkerville refused to die. Within months, carpenters and prospectors returned, hammering new boards onto old foundations. The Phoenix of the North, they called it. A town too stubborn, or too haunted, to stay down. But as the gold began to fade, the people who had built Barkerville began to fade with it. By the 1890s, the streets were quieter, shutters closed, saloons emptied. and the laughter that had once spilled from the doors of the saloon gave way to the creak of wind through the eaves. The town that once blazed like a lantern in the Caribou was now a ghost of itself. Yet, some said, it wasn't entirely empty. Visitors walking the boardwalks after dark reported the sound of boots behind them, steady, rhythmic. But when they turned, no one was there. The caretaker of the Theatre Royal spoke of hearing piano music drifting from the stage after midnight, though the building was locked and cold. And one winter evening, a schoolteacher staying in the rebuilt hotel claimed she saw a woman standing in the upper window. A woman dressed in 19th century lace, her face pale, unmoving.
Who's the woman in the window?
Upper floor's been closed for decades.
Haunting in Barkerville was not sudden. It didn't come with screams or flashing lights. It crept in slowly, the way cold air moves beneath a door, the way a song lingers long after the singer is gone. As decades passed, the town shifted from memory to myth. The miners were buried in hillside cemeteries, their stories retold by new generations of caretakers and tourists. And yet, the more the living tried to restore Barkerville, the more it seemed to resist. Doors opened by themselves. Photographs developed with strange blurs and figures. People working alone in the church or the theatre spoke of an invisible presence. Curious, never cruel, but insistent. They say history leaves an imprint, that where strong emotions live, hope, greed, love, or grief, something lingers, folded into the air. In Barkerville, those emotions were countless. The laughter of miners celebrating a strike, the sorrow of families waiting for word from the hills, the quiet despair of those who found only ruin. All of it pressed into the wood, the dust, the frost. So perhaps the question isn't why Barkerville is haunted, but how could it not be? Every ghost story in Barkerville begins with the sound of footsteps. Not a stampede of miners or the bustle of the gold rush, just a single tread across the old boardwalks, measured and heavy, as though the town itself still remembers how to walk. Those who live or work here long enough begin to feel it, that quiet sense of being observed by something older than the buildings. The guides don't mention it to visitors, not at first, but after hours, when the crowds are gone and the lamps have been turned low, they all tell the same stories. The Theatre Royal is one of the last structures where the past still performs. By daylight it's a cheerful stage, rebuilt from the ashes of 1868. But when the velvet curtains close and the night sets in, something lingers among the seats. Actors have reported hearing applause after an empty rehearsal, the sharp crack of hands echoing once, then fading into stillness. Others have heard a woman's voice singing softly from the wings, a melody no one recognizes. One story tells of a visitor who wandered into the theatre after a performance and saw a lady in white standing at the edge of the stage. He thought she was a performer, waiting for her cue, until she stepped backward into the darkness and disappeared through the closed curtain. When he told the staff, they nodded quietly. They knew her. She's been seen for years, always near the stage lights, always gone before she reaches the stairs. Some call her Florence, after a 19th century singer who performed here, before dying suddenly on the Gold Trail. Others think she's one of the audience, someone who never left the show. There's another ghost in the theatre, though he prefers the balcony. He's been described as a tall man in a black coat, leaning against the rail with a calm, patient expression. During the 1960s restoration, a painter working on the ceiling saw him and assumed he was another tradesman.
Need something?
When he looked down to ask a question, the balcony was empty. Tools sometimes vanish up there, only to reappear days later on the stage floor, arranged neatly. Across the street, the old Barkerville Hotel holds a different story. The upper floor has been sealed for years, unsafe stairs, too fragile for public access. But people still see movement behind the windows. Staff locking up after dark have reported a faint light glowing in the second-story rooms, flickering like a candle flame. A woman's face has been seen in the glass, pale, calm, and unsmiling. When the RCMP were called to investigate once,
Stop here.
they found the windows boarded from the inside.
Low.
Light upstairs.
Someone's in there. Board's on the inside.
Then who was standing in that window?
Locals whisper that she was a saloon girl who perished in the 1868 fire, trapped upstairs when the roof collapsed. Her name, they say, was Fanny Ben Dixon, a woman of rare beauty and impossible luck. After her death, her lover returned to Barkerville every year on the anniversary of the fire, leaving flowers beneath the window where she was last seen. Now, on certain autumn nights, visitors claim to smell smoke in the still air, and to see that same faint light burning above the saloon. Whether it's her, or only memory playing tricks on the night, no one can say. But perhaps the most famous of Barkerville's restless dead is a man named Charles Morgan Blessing, the barber who never found his way home. Blessing was a well-known figure in the town's prime, a patient man with a gentle voice and a talent for listening. He arrived in Barkerville with dreams of wealth and left behind only mystery. In 1868, around the time of the Great Fire, Blessing vanished. Weeks later, his body was found along a trail outside town, buried shallow in the mud. His throat had been cut. No one was ever charged, though suspicion pointed toward another miner who owed him money. Soon after, the townspeople began to whisper. Patrons at the rebuilt barbershop swore they heard the faint rhythm of a razor being stropped behind them, a slow, deliberate scraping sound, though the chair sat empty. One prospector claimed he felt a hand on his shoulder and turned to find the air shimmering beside the mirror. The temperature in the room had dropped so sharply that his breath fogged in the glass. Even today, some visitors to Barkerville's museum exhibit say they feel an invisible pressure at their neck, like the edge of a cold blade hovering just above the skin. The guides laugh it off, but no one lingers long. There are smaller stories too, fragments scattered through the town's wooden bones. The ghostly scent of perfume in the dressmaker's shop. A child's laughter near the Chinese schoolhouse when the air is still. A knocking sound from beneath the floorboards of the church, where an unmarked coffin was once found during renovations. Each story, on its own, might be dismissed. Tricks of the senses, coincidences, drafts of wind in old walls. But together they form a pattern, like threads in the same cloth. A quiet suggestion that Barkerville remembers more than it should. The town may be a museum now, carefully restored and well lit, but when dusk falls over the Caribou, it slips backward. The lanterns flicker, the mountains darken, and for a few hours, the year might as well be 1868 again, a time when fortunes burned hot and ended cold, and when some spirits, it seems, chose to stay.